picture this, right? You're sitting in a classroom.
Oh, I already know where this is going.
Right. And maybe the fluorescent lights are humming just a bit too loud. You're trying your best to learn a new language, feeling that familiar mix of ambition and, let's be honest, mild terror.
Definitely terror.
Yeah. And then the teacher steps up to the front, announces a listening exercise, and just abruptly hits play on a blurry, muffled audio track. Instantly, this incomprehensible wall of sound washes over the room.
It's the worst. Total panic ensues.
Exactly. You catch maybe one word in 10, your heart rate spikes, and you just know you're going to fail whatever quiz is coming next. I mean, we have all seen that look of sheer dread on our students' faces.
Oh, absolutely. It is a universally stressful experience,
Okay.
both for the learner and honestly for the teacher who has to watch it happen. It's the exact moment where all the confidence a student built up during, a controlled grammar or vocabulary lesson just completely evaporates.
It just vanishes.
Right. And we often operate under this assumption that listening in the classroom should be as natural as it is in our native language. But the neurological and environmental realities, they are entirely different.
Yeah, and that familiar anxiety-inducing scene is exactly our focus today. We are looking at a highly practical piece by Nick Peachy. It was published on the British Council's Teaching English website.
Great platform.
It really is. The article is titled, "A Framework for Planning a Listening Skills Lesson." And alongside the article, we are pulling from the comments section, too.
Which is a goldmine.
Oh, 100%. It's full of real-world feedback from teachers who are navigating these exact hurdles daily. So since we are having a professional talk today, colleague to colleague, the mission of this deep dive is to completely upgrade your teaching toolkit.
I love that.
We are going to explore Peachy's 3-stage lesson framework. So that's pre-listening, while listening, and post-listening.
Which sounds simple, but the mechanics are fascinating.
Yeah. They really are. We'll look at the cognitive mechanics of student motivation, how to structure skill development so it actually sticks, and finally, we'll walk through how to apply this to an authentic text, like a pop song, so you know exactly what this looks like on a Monday morning. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. So I think the most critical shift in perspective happens before anyone even thinks about touching that play button. Peachy points out something fundamental, which is that listening to an isolated audio track in a classroom is a highly unnatural process.
Unnatural. How so?
Well, we're asking the brain to do something it rarely, if ever, does in the wild.
You know, that concept of unnatural listening really reframes the whole problem for me. Like, think about how we listen in real life.
Right.
If I'm talking to you at a coffee shop, I have the environment, I have your body language, I know why we are there, and I know the thread of our conversation over the last 10 minutes.
You have all the context.
Exactly. My brain has all these contextual clues to predict what vocabulary you might use next. But classroom listening, it is essentially like being blindfolded, spun around, and dropped into a movie theater halfway through a film.
That is such a good analogy.
Right. You have absolutely no idea who the characters are, what the plot is, or even what genre you're watching. No wonder the students panic. The brain's predictive mechanisms are completely offline.
Yeah, that movie theater analogy captures the cognitive deficit perfectly. In the real world, the environment does half the heavy lifting for our comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
It primes our neural networks for specific semantic fields. But in the classroom, we strip all of that environmental scaffolding away and just deliver raw, decontextualized sound. And that is precisely why Peachy insists on a robust pre-listening stage.
So what does that look like?
He outlines 3 mandatory goals that must be achieved before the audio starts: motivation, contextualization, and preparation. The objective is to help learners access their existing knowledge and construct that mental movie theater around them before the film even begins.
Okay, I understand the theory, but let's talk about the reality of the classroom. Because motivation is a really tricky word.
Oh, very tricky.
You can't just mandate excitement, Saying, hey, everyone, get excited to listen to a dialogue about booking a train ticket at Paddington Station is just not going to work.
No, they'll see right through that.
Right. So how do we practically motivate students who are already dreading the listening exercise? Motivation has to be engineered.
It does. False enthusiasm falls flat immediately. The framework suggests that motivation starts with selecting texts that are genuinely relevant to the specific demographic you are teaching.
Okay, that makes sense.
But beyond material selection, you engineer motivation by designing tasks that arouse curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
You want them leaning in, trying to guess outcomes. And this naturally bleeds into the preparation phase, which focuses heavily on pre-teaching specific critical vocabulary.
I really want to dig into that vocabulary preparation because Peachy's reasoning here clarifies a massive pitfall I think a lot of us fall into.
Yeah, go for it.
If there are specific words or expressions the learners need in order to complete the listening task, they must be covered beforehand. Because if you skip that step, the nature of the exercise fundamentally changes.
It's not a listening exercise anymore.
Exactly. It stops being an act of developing listening skills, and it becomes a high-speed translation test.
Which is exhausting.
So exhausting. If a student is frantically trying to retrieve the definition of a specific verb they heard 10 seconds ago, they've just missed the next 3 sentences of the audio. They aren't listening to the flow of the language anymore. They are trapped in a cognitive bottleneck.
That bottleneck is the crux of the issue. When listening to a foreign language, the brain's phonological loop is already working in overdrive just to parse unfamiliar sounds and map them onto known phonemes.
Right. The brain is sweating.
Exactly. That requires massive processing power. By pre-teaching the vocabulary and establishing the context, you eliminate the need for real-time semantic translation. You lower the overall cognitive burden, which frees up their limited working memory to actually listen to the syntax and the connected speech.
So we are essentially removing the roadblocks so they can actually drive the car.
Beautifully put.
The students now know the context, they have the key vocabulary, and their curiosity is primed. The blindfold is off. Now, we finally hit play.
Finally.
But as the framework shows, simply playing the track once and asking a list of comprehension questions is a recipe for failure. Here's where it gets really interesting.
It really does, because it requires a complete departure from how many of us were taught.
Yeah.
We have to abandon the instinct to treat a listening exercise like a one-and-done test.
Right?
Peachy's rule for the while listening stage is that learners need to listen to the text 3 or 4 times.
Okay, wait. I have to bring up a pragmatic concern here. Let's be real about a standard 45-minute class period.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
If I play a 4-minute audio track 4 times, factor in the time for instructions, the time for students to actually do the task, and the transitions in between, I mean, that is easily 20 to 25 minutes.
Yeah, easily.
That's more than half my lesson gone on a single text. Doesn't listening to the same audio 4 times risk boring the students to tears? And how does Peachy justify that kind of time investment when we all have massive grammar syllabuses just get through?
It is a totally valid concern, and it's one of the most common frictions teachers experience with communicative frameworks. But the justification comes down to the difference between testing a skill and teaching a skill.
Testing versus teaching.
Exactly. If you play the audio once and ask questions, you are simply testing their current listening ability. You aren't improving it. To actually build the neural pathways required for better listening, the brain needs repeated exposure to the same input, but with shifting parameters.
That makes a lot of sense.
That time investment is the only way to actually develop the sub-skills of listening, rather than just diagnosing their deficits.
Wow, that distinction between testing and teaching changes the math completely. And that brings us to the comments section of the article, where teachers point out that learners are often intimidated by unfamiliar accents or just the sheer speed of natural speech.
Oh, the speed is always a shock.
Always. So that very first listen isn't about deep comprehension at all. It is purely an acclimatization phase. It allows the brain's auditory processing centers to basically tune in to the voices, the rhythm, and the cadence without the pressure of producing a correct answer.
Yeah, that tuning in process is vital. But the danger of listening 3 or 4 times is, of course, fatigue, like you mentioned, boredom.
Right.
If you play it 4 times with the exact same broad goal, they will completely tune out. So the framework prevents this through what Peachy calls grading the tasks. You structure the skill development by fundamentally changing the cognitive demand of the task with every single listen.
Okay, let's break down how that grading actually functions to prevent boredom. So for listen 1, the goal is general understanding, just the gist. You keep the demand incredibly low.
Very low.
You might give them a single question like, are the speakers happy or angry? Or are they indoors or outdoors? It requires no detailed linguistic processing, just a read on the general atmosphere. It builds immediate confidence.
Then we escalate to listen 2. Now you demand a greater, more detailed understanding of the text. But Peachy offers a crucial warning here. Do not demand long written responses.
I noticed that warning, and the cognitive psychology behind it is fascinating.
It's so counterintuitive for a lot of teachers.
It is, because writing a full sentence requires productive output. You've
Yeah.
got spelling, grammar formation, physical handwriting. If we ask them to do that while they are still struggling with receptive input from the audio, we are asking them to do complex multitasking in a foreign language.
Which their brains just can't handle yet.
Right. Competing neural pathways are firing simultaneously. They will inevitably stop listening to write and they'll miss the audio.
The output demand literally destroys their capacity for input focus. So for the second listen, the framework advises keeping the responses strictly to single words, ticking boxes on a worksheet, or them sort of graphical response.
Keep it simple.
Exactly. If you lower the physical and cognitive friction of answering, they can maintain their auditory focus.
So by listen 3, they are highly familiar with the rhythm of the audio and they've secured the main details. Peachy mentions this third listen focuses on more subtle interpretations, or it simply serves as an opportunity for them to check the answers they generated during the second listen.
Yeah, they've automated the basic comprehension, so they finally have the bandwidth for nuance.
But there is a structural element Peachy includes between these listens that makes all of this function smoothly, and he calls it breathing space.
Yes, breathing space is non-negotiable. Listening to a foreign language, especially when trying to extract specific information, is an intensive, neurologically demanding activity. You cannot loop the audio back to back.
It's just too much.
The working memory gets totally overloaded. You have to provide structured pauses between listenings.
And this is where peer collaboration becomes a pedagogical tool rather than just a classroom management strategy. During that breathing space, having them compare their answers with a partner does two very specific things.
What's the first one?
First, it gives the phonological loop a necessary rest. Second, it allows them to negotiate meaning. If one student missed a detail but their partner caught it, they can adjust their expectations. They know exactly what to listen for on the next round. It turns a solitary, high-stress task into a collaborative puzzle.
That's brilliant because it mitigates the affective filter. Anxiety goes way down when the responsibility is shared, and that naturally leads us to the transition out of the audio phase.
Yeah, by grading those tasks and managing the cognitive load during the listening phase, the students actually have mental energy left over. They aren't exhausted, which means they're finally ready for the post-listening stage. The instinct for a lot of us is to say, "Great job, everyone. Let's close the textbook and move on." But the framework emphasizes that this final stage is where the acquired knowledge actually integrates into their broader language matrix.
What's fascinating here is how Peachy divides this post-listening stage. He categorizes the tasks into two distinct avenues: reaction to the text and analysis of language. And he makes a very deliberate argument about which one holds more weight for actually developing listening skills.
The natural assumption for a language classroom is that the analysis, the grammar and the syntax would be the priority.
It is the assumption, yeah. But Peachy argues that reaction to the content is far more important.
Really?
Yeah, and his reasoning is rooted in authenticity. It mirrors how we interact with auditory information in real life. We rarely listen to a colleague tell a story just so we can silently analyze their use of the past perfect continuous.
That would be so weird.
Right, we listen for a purpose and then we react.
Yeah.
We agree, we disagree, we offer a solution, or we synthesize and reuse the information in a new context.
That makes perfect sense. Let's look at it like the difference between a lively book club and an auto mechanics garage.
Ooh, I like that.
Reaction is the book club. You are debating the character's choices, you're emotionally invested in the narrative, and you're using language to express your own authentic opinions about what you consumed.
Yeah.
Analysis, on the other hand, is the mechanic popping the hood of the car to inspect the timing belt.
Exactly.
Both have value, but the book club is the actual reason we learn to read in the first place. The framework suggests we need to prioritize the book club. Do the students believe the speaker? How would they react in that specific scenario?
We prioritize the reaction, but we don't discard the mechanics garage entirely. We just sequence it correctly. Peachy points out that doing form-focused analysis, like looking closely at verb forms or identifying how certain adjectives collocate with specific nouns, is significantly easier to execute after the reaction phase.
Because meaning must precede form.
Precisely. By the time they hit the analysis phase, the learners have thoroughly grasped the semantic meaning and the context. The fog has lifted. They are no longer struggling to decode what is being said, which means their analytical faculties are fully available to examine how it was said.
The comments section offered some excellent concrete ideas for this post-listening phase that go beyond basic discussion.
Oh yeah, there were some great ones.
One educator highlighted having students search for relevant, related content in newspapers or current TV broadcasts to reuse the information they just learned. They take the isolated topic from the audio and immediately track how it operates in the broader world. It shifts the exercise from passive reception to active, functional application.
It totally bridges the gap between the controlled classroom environment and autonomous language use.
Okay, let's move from the theoretical framework to the intensely practical. As educators, as colleagues, we need to know what this actually looks like when we are standing at the whiteboard on a Monday morning.
The real test.
Exactly. Let's apply this entire three-stage architecture to an authentic text. Peachy uses the example of a pop song, which is a brilliant choice because it natively carries motivation, cultural relevance, and authentic pacing.
It is an ideal vehicle for this framework.
Let's tag team this walkthrough. I will set up the classroom scenario and you break down the pedagogy.
Sounds good.
So it's Monday morning. We are in the pre-listening stage. Let's say I've chosen an upbeat, universally relatable breakup song.
Classic.
Before I even display the lyrics or mention the artist, I need to build that mental movie theater. I have the students brainstorm different themes in music. I ask them to describe the emotional arc of their favorite songs.
Getting them invested.
Yeah. Then I narrow the focus. I tell them we are going to listen to a song about a relationship ending, and I ask them to predict what specific verbs or adjectives might appear. They are generating vocabulary, I'm writing it on the board, and we are organically pre-teaching the necessary language. The predictive networks are fully online.
Boom. You have seamlessly achieved contextualization and preparation. Their cognitive load is managed. Now we transition into the pile. While listening stage, implementing those graded tasks.
What's the first listen?
For the first listen, they hear the song with one incredibly simple objective. Identify the overall tone. Is the singer angry, sad, or indifferent?
The demand is practically zero. They don't have to catch every word. They are just tuning their ears to the tempo and the acoustic environment of the track.
Exactly. Then, for the second listen, we elevate the cognitive demand, but we avoid the trap of written output. You take the verses of the song, cut them up into individual physical strips of paper, and distribute them. As the students listen, their task is to physically sequence the lyrics on their desks.
I have to say, this is a masterclass in task design.
Isn't it?
They aren't writing, so they aren't multitasking. But they have to listen with acute, granular focus to catch the end rhymes and the transitions in order to sequence the paper correctly. The tactile nature of moving the paper bypasses the language production centers of the brain entirely, leaving their auditory processing fully dedicated to the song.
That's the magic of it. After providing that necessary breathing space for them to compare their sequencing with a neighbor, we initiate the third listen. You provide a written summary of the song's narrative on the board, but you deliberately embed factual errors.
Oh, I like that.
Right. As they listen for the final time, they must identify and correct those specific errors in the summary.
I genuinely love this mechanic because it fundamentally alters their posture toward the audio. It turns the students into active detectives. They aren't just letting the music wash over them passively, they are hunting for specific auditory evidence to prove the teacher's summary wrong.
Which is incredibly motivating.
It really is. It's highly engaging and requires a very focused type of listening. So, what does this all mean for the final stage? We've primed them, we've tuned them in, we've had them sequence, and we've had them investigate.
Now they are fully prepared for the post-listening stage, beginning with reaction. You push them to use the target language to express original thought. You could have them discuss who they would buy the song for. You could have them write a review of the track for a music website.
Or, if the class leans creative, task them with writing an entirely new verse from the perspective of the other person in the relationship.
Yes, they are reacting to the content, prioritizing the book club discussion. And then finally, we pop the hood for the analysis phase.
Mechanics garage.
You got it. We project the accurate lyrics on the board, and now we can hunt for language. We identify the specific verb forms used to describe the past relationship versus the present reality. We look for collocations words that naturally pair together in the artist's lyrics and deduce meaning from the context they now intimately understand.
The lesson arc is complete. You're moving from abstract sound to deep functional comprehension.
It's a highly satisfying structure.
It really is. And, I want to highlight an invaluable piece of practical advice from the community comments on Peachy's article, specifically from Kath. She's a member of the Teaching English team.
What did she say?
She points out how accessible this framework is regarding resources. You do not need to purchase a specialized curriculum to do this. You can find song lyrics online instantly, or even simpler, you can use the tape scripts located at the back of the standard course books you already have.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Right. You can photocopy and cut up those tape scripts. You can blank out words. You can write summaries with deliberate errors based on textbook dialogues. The raw materials for this dynamic framework are already sitting in your classroom.
It completely empowers the educator to take control of the syllabus, rather than being dictated to by the textbook's default, often uninspired, comprehension questions. And the efficacy of this approach is backed up by practitioners. Another commenter, Sohila Kamalzadeh, specifically praised this exact song framework. She noted its high success rate in consistently engaging and motivating students. It overcomes that initial hurdle of dread that we discussed at the very beginning.
We really have journeyed quite a ways from that opening image, haven't we? The unnatural panic of a blurry audio track washing over a terrified room.
We've completely flipped it.
We have. By implementing Peachy's three-stage framework, we replace panic with intentional architecture. We motivate and contextualize in the pre-listening stage to lower the cognitive load.
We guide them with graded tasks and crucial breathing room in the while-ceasing stage, ensuring we are teaching the skill, not just testing it.
And we allow them to authentically react and then structurally analyze in the post-listening stage. It transforms listening from a test of endurance into a structured process of discovery.
It is a profound shift in pedagogy. And, I want to leave you with a final thought that expands on the underlying mechanics of this source material. We've explored this purely as a professional toolkit for teaching language learners. But consider your own professional life and how you, as an adult, consume complex information.
Oh, that's an interesting pivot. How does this apply to us outside the classroom?
Well, think about it. If you applied this exact pre, while, and post framework to how you prepare for high-stakes meetings, or even how you listen to deep dive conversations like this one,
No.
how much more data would you actually retain?
Wow.
Are you priming your own context and vocabulary before you walk into a briefing? Are you falling into the trap of trying to write copious notes while simultaneously listening to a dense presentation, thereby overloading your own working memory?
We do that all the time.
We do. And perhaps most importantly, are you setting up your own dedicated breathing space to process the sheer volume of information overload in your professional life before you force yourself to react?
That is a brilliant reframing. We are so focused on managing our students' cognitive load that we often completely ignore our own. We need to build in our own breathing space.
We really do.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the listening framework. We highly encourage you to take these insights, construct that mental movie theater, and try this architecture out in your very next lesson. Take that blurry audio track and turn it into something your students actually lean into hear. Until next time, keep learning and keep creating that space to listen.